Sweet. All right, what's up, guys? It is Wednesday. Got Clayton and JMart with me. Let's do it. Let's do the college football playoffs. Let's break it down. I've been waiting now a week. We're a couple of days away to go through it all and figure out if there's any future bets. I feel like there's a lot of money to be made on the college football. Not I feel like there is a lot of money to be made if you got a good opinion on this, because everyone, you're getting plus money to take every single team to win it. You can do matchups. There's a ton of different things you can do. So hopefully us going through each game and the scenarios will help you guys. And Clayton, JMart, let's roll, man. The first game is going to be Friday night. It's going to be Indiana, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a pretty big favorite. 8 points, 7.5, 8, depends on where you look. They're home against Indiana. JMart, we talked about this game a little bit on Tuesday. As we get a little bit closer here, what are your thoughts on this game? How do you see it playing out? Would you lay the points? Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's a great matchup of elite defense versus elite offense, with Notre Dame's defense being phenomenal and Indiana having a virtually unstoppable offense outside of a rough game against Ohio State. I think Notre Dame's played better teams. They did go into Texas A&M and beat them pretty soundly. And, they've beaten Army, they've beaten Navy. But that being said, we are talking about two teams that haven't really shown if they can beat really good teams, which makes it a little heads up for me. I think the line's a little high. I do think Indiana can compete with them. The fact that it's like an in-state rivalry kind of factors a lot into it for me. I do think Notre Dame wins. I think they're the more well-rounded team. I think they're the more composed team. I don't think the jitters will be there as much for them. That being said, Indiana's really good. Indiana will have that underdog mentality. It will be a factor. And we've seen Notre Dame lose games like this that they should win, specifically in the playoffs, a lot. So I think Indiana can cover the line. I do think Notre Dame ends up winning it, though.
Clayton, I'm leaning Indiana because I liked how they not only got smacked by Ohio State to knock them off the high horse, then they came back and smacked Purdue. So I feel like they're in pretty good vibes. And Notre Dame's defense is not as good as Ohio State. And they might have a really good defense, but it's not Ohio State's defense. So I always want to go with the underdog and bet against Notre Dame. Do I have your endorsement, or do you think Notre Dame's going to control this game?
Well, besides that Northern Illinois game, Notre Dame has looked really strong, I think, defensively throughout the whole season. And while Indiana does have a high-powered offense, once again, we haven't really seen them play anyone, so it's a little hard to tell. I don't think they'll be able to get a whole lot of intricate stuff going against Notre Dame just because of the talent level defensively for them. However, Indiana's defense, I think, is pretty underrated. I think they've got a lot stronger of a defense. I think when you think of Indiana, you often think of their offense, you think of Curtis Rourke, but they've got a really talented defense statistically that's going to be able to keep them in the game. I just honestly don't think they'll be able to keep up with Notre Dame offensively.
So you like the over 51? You think it's going to be more high scoring?
It's hard to tell. I think that's about a good line. It's hard for me to pick either side on that. I don't think it'll be a super high scoring game, but I definitely don't think it'll be a slugfest.
But it wouldn't shock you if Notre Dame won by 2 touchdowns.
Definitely, especially with them being at home.
So who's a better matchup? Who's Georgia want to play, JMart? Because Georgia's going to get the winner. I feel like they're in a good spot either way. I think they match up well with both of these teams, but I know you know infinitely more about each of these programs. So if you're Georgia, who do you want to play?
You absolutely want to play Indiana. Riley Leonard as a quarterback represents a really dangerous dual threat option that Georgia has shown they just can't figure out how to stop. I don't know what the issue is. It's been a problem for, at this point, over half a decade. I've talked about it on this podcast before. But Georgia can't figure out dual threat quarterbacks that well. Riley Leonard is great with his legs, and they have a really good run game, which Georgia's also shown an inability to stop at points this season. You look at Indiana. Yeah, they're a really high-powered offense, like Clayton said, an underrated defense, but a little more inexperienced, a little easier to kind of get them on their back foot. I think Notre Dame has more of a gritty mentality that would kind of flummox, I guess, Georgia for a couple quarters.
I would think if Indiana wins this game, they would have absolutely nothing to lose, be in a good mood. And that goes to my next point. Do you see in the NFL, we talk about, the divisional round having the bye, that's really important. But each team kind of had a break as it is. Do you think for college there's actually an advantage to playing in this round? Like, would you be worried if you're Georgia, Oregon, waiting for these teams, knowing they're going to have all this momentum? What do you think?
I wouldn't necessarily, just because it is still football. The game of rest is huge. They will have the momentum on their side. their bodies won't be on their side in the same way as a team that gets the day off, gets the rest, gets an extra game of film that they can watch, get analyzed and stuff like that. I think that the momentum will definitely be there for whoever wins. That being said, just the physical side of it is so massive in football. I'd take the bye over playing an extra game any day.
You agree with that, Clayton?
Yeah, I think you'd love to have the bye. When it comes to college football, especially these two teams, they've been very inconsistent throughout the whole year, depending on who they're playing. So I wouldn't necessarily want the bye. I think there's some benefits from both, but like Jack was saying, the physical aspect is huge. So I think any team would be happy to take a bye.
All right, let's go to the next game. The first game on Saturday by itself at noon, SMU Penn State. I thought the number was high. Everything I'm reading suggests Penn State's just going to dominate them and control the ball. So it's an 8.5-point favorite. Penn State's favored. 54 is the total. I want to take SMU. Clayton, what's the pathway here for SMU? Because last time we saw them, Clemson really imposed their will. It looked like Clemson led up on them. Really could have won that game by a couple touchdowns. SMU's got to feel good, though, right? Like they made it. They got to feel like, man, we've had a good year. Talk about the X's and O's here going up against Penn State. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, well, looking at Penn State, they've got a really talented rush defense. And one thing that kind of was able to keep SMU in the game was their rushing offense against Clemson. Obviously, when you think of SMU, Kevin Jennings, very talented quarterback. I'm pretty high on him, but I think the key to winning this game, especially on the road at Penn State, is going to be getting that run game going, which is going to be really difficult with some of the talent that they have up front.
Yeah, that's basically what I've been reading is like SMU, if they're going to get behind like they did against Clemson, and then they're on the road, and Penn State runs way better than Clemson does. So that seems to be the prevailing wisdom amongst the experts. JMart, are you feeling that way too? Like this game's not going to be very competitive, or you see it a different way?
I don't think it will be competitive. I wish SMU had a chance at winning it, but Penn State all season has been a team that wins the games they're supposed to. Sometimes it's ugly, but they don't drop games against teams they should beat. And just going into Penn State and trying to win there in this temperature coming from a Texas team, it's an ugly situation all around for SMU. If I'm them, they do have nothing to lose. That is a factor, but Penn State's so consistent at beating these teams they should beat. I don't see a way they lose this game now.
Clayton, if SMU does pull it off, like they win a close game by 3 points, would it be 20-17 or would it be more like 34-31?
I think it would be 20-17. I think you'd have to kind of have the grace of Penn State's offense doing bad because we've seen that happen in some games. So I think if SMU was to win this game, you would see a lot happening from the defensive side of the ball for them and just offensive struggles for Penn State because we know that can happen to them, especially in big games.
JMart, is this Jennings character on SMU, is he a pro quarterback or he doesn't really feel like it?
I don't think necessarily he's a pro quarterback. I think he's really good with his feet and he has some really solid arm talent, but the decision-making is not elite, stays in the pocket too long. All the typical stuff you'll hear about good college quarterbacks that just won't translate, holds it too long, reads are kind of off sometimes, but he's a freak athlete. And
it felt like all he was doing was dumping the ball. What's the running back's name, number one? He pretty much gets the ball all the time. They just kept throwing him the ball. He's throwing the ball on his back foot a lot. I wasn't super impressed with him as they were playing Clemson. All right, same question I asked about Georgia. Boise State is sitting there like, man, this is fantastic. We're going to get to play the winner of SMU Penn State. I know they'd probably rather play SMU. I'm sure that's the case. But fast forward, like, I'm curious, will Penn State be favored? Like, let's just say Penn State wins this game, fairly easily. How do you see the Penn State-Boise State game playing? Do you think Penn State would be favored by 3 or 4 points?
I think Penn State would be favored. I think a lot of that would have to do with how they go about handling Ashton Jeanty, because a lot of those Mountain West teams, you would see them try to do too much to handle Ashton Jeanty, and then Boise State would be able to get the pass game going. So I think because Penn State's got so much talent, especially in the run defense category, they would just be favored because they wouldn't have to do as much as some of these other teams to handle the strong run game.
Yeah, Jim, it sounds like Penn State, I don't know what's going on. They got the best possible draw they could get. You're telling me they're playing an SMU team that's, I guess, with respect to Arizona State at the moment, they consider the worst team out of the bunch. And then what Penn State does the best, you guys are saying, is stuff the run. And now they're, instead of staring at Oregon or Georgia or Texas, they're going to stare at the best running back in Boise State. So, JMart, is Penn State headed to the Final Four? Is that what we're looking at?
I mean, yeah, it seems like a pretty straightforward line for them. As soon as the bracket came out, I was pretty confident in Penn State being the team Georgia would have to play if they end up winning their quarterfinals matchup. The only way I see Penn State slipping up against Boise State is that they trust their talent too much, because at the end of the day, Ashton Jonty is such a freak that you have to script your game around him. They will need to stack the box to an extent. If I was them, I'd put 6 to 7 guys in there and try and make Madsen make high-level reads against really solid secondary pieces on Penn State. But that being said, it would take a coaching disaster and a performance disaster against Boise State for Penn State to lose that game.
So Penn State that Oregon offense and the Georgia offense is going to give Penn State trouble. But these more pro-style, run the ball, try to 3 clouds and dust, that's what Penn State wants, right?
No, yeah, like if they were to have a draw with Arizona State being the other option, they'd feel pretty comfortable too. It's these run-first offenses that Penn State's going to dominate.
Got it. So you both like Penn State, both like Notre Dame. I think JMart thinks Indiana can hang a little bit more than Clayton does. All right, are we going to make an argument for Clemson here? Because I cannot believe they're getting 12 points. I mean, they have to be getting 12 points for a reason, but they're feeling great. Like, they just won the ACC championship. Dabo gets to tap into the underdog mentality with a bunch of 5-star kids who all are amazing at football, but yet they're 12-point underdogs. We'll start with you, J-Mart. Texas, 12-point favorite. So just go for it. What do you think is going to happen in this game? The total's 52.
Yeah, well, the big issue is that we saw Texas last week hang with Georgia, arguably beat Georgia. Well, they did beat Georgia for most of the game and hung in just right until the end. And Georgia beat Clemson by 30 points. And that does factor into this. Clemson is obviously a completely different team from week 1. I think they look a lot better. I think they can hang with Texas a lot better. But Texas should win this game. I think the line makes sense from a logic standpoint. That being said, I haven't seen Quinn Ewers look that good in big games at all in his college career. Both games against Georgia, he wasn't very good. He wasn't very good against Washington last year in the playoffs. I don't really trust him when it comes down to it. Is he the guy? Does he have like the dog factor? Like, is he the guy that's going to make the big play? I don't necessarily think so. And I do think Cade Klubnik can do that for Clemson. So if this game ends up close in the fourth quarter, I would lean Clemson. That being said, such a massive talent discrepancy between the two sides that I just think Texas should be able to win this game by 2 possessions.
Where's that talent discrepancy particularly? Like, where are we going to see it? Is it on the perimeter? Texas is just going to be too dynamic? Is it up front? How do you see this playing out?
I definitely think Texas has more talented receivers. Other than that, I think the offenses are pretty similar talent-wise. But definitely on the defensive side of the ball, Texas has had one of the best defenses year-round, which is, I think, why they're getting the amount of points that they are. That being said, I do really like Clemson to cover here. Like Jack said, I think they're a completely different team from week 1. And I just don't know if I can trust Texas's offense, especially against the Clemson defense that's looked particularly strong in their past few games.
Yeah. So Jamar, help me out then. Why is the line 12? What are the odds makers thinking? Like, how does Texas win this game by 30 points?
Well, Clemson hasn't beaten anyone significant. Like, yes, SMU's in the playoffs, but again, we all know if it's based off best team, SMU wouldn't be here. I don't trust Clemson to beat a good team, and Texas has at least beaten some teams or hung with good teams. And again, they've had the best statistical defense all year. Clemson's looked pretty rough on offense. And then if you're trusting Texas to keep it rolling on offense, you think that they're at least good enough to win by 2 touchdowns would be the logic.
And I would say, I don't know, again, the way they make the lines, there's a million things that go into it. But I do think it probably jumps out that Georgia destroyed Clemson. Even though Georgia beat the crap out of Texas the first time, the second time was pretty close. Yeah, the number feels off. If I have a hard time figuring out why the number is that way, I get a little nervous. Clemson getting 12. I don't think Texas's home field is something that's going to scare away Clemson. So, yeah, I'm leaning towards Clemson keeps it close. Klubnik, where's he at? Is he an NFL quarterback, Jamar?
I don't think he passes at an NFL level. I think there's some development he could do, but I don't particularly love him as an NFL quarterback. I think he's a guy just stick around college, enjoy it while he's there, because he's great in college and he shows flashes. I just haven't seen enough consistency at all with the passing for me to feel confident in him being an NFL guy.
Clayton, if Texas wins this game, or are they going to be even bigger favorites against Arizona State the following week? Because Arizona State, the last thing they want to do is see Texas, right?
Yeah, I think so. Arizona State's highlight has been their offense. Obviously, Cam Scatabo, the running game, super talented. Knowing that Texas is a good defensive team, I think they'll be favored by maybe even more against Arizona State. And just given that Clemson's kind of rolling right now, I think that adds to the line.
Very interesting what's going on with Arizona State. JMart, does Arizona State have a pathway to beat either of these teams, you think?
They could be Clemson. It'd take a lot. Again, a run-first offense is pretty easy for good defensive minds to script against, and they're kind of run exclusive. And again, they just really haven't played anyone that significant outside of the Big 12. I don't particularly like them. I do think they're probably the second worst team in the playoffs right now. But again, the benefit of where they're at right now is Clemson would be the third worst. And if they draw Clemson, I do think they have a chance. But that being said, Texas should kill them. It shouldn't really be that close.
It's an irrelevant question, but it just popped into my head. If Arizona State was playing Alabama or Ole Miss on a neutral field this week, is the spread 12 points, 13 points?
If the spread's 12 or 13 points, I'm taking the over. I'd take it until it's probably 7.
No, I'm saying, would that be the hypothetical spread? Like if Arizona State was just playing Alabama this week,
it'd be it'd be 2 touchdowns. Ole Miss, it might be 2.5, just because Ole Miss has that ability to just pile on when they're beating a team. They're comfortably worse than both those teams.
I will definitely take Arizona State, especially if they're playing Texas. I love that. Love finding a way to bet on an underdog one way or the other. So Arizona State and Boise State are sitting pretty. They're on a bye, and they're going to be the underdogs most likely in the following week. That's the college football playoff for you. All right, we saved the best game for last, that's for sure. It's going to be Saturday night, must-see TV. This is an amazing matchup. I just cannot wait for this. Tennessee, Ohio State. Again, I thought the number was too high. I know you guys are going to tell me that the Nico character can't throw the ball on the road. They're going to Ohio State. But Ohio State's got the worst juju of any of these teams. They got their ass kicked by Michigan and then proceeded to act ridiculous. They all want to get the coach fired. It's a lot going on in Ohio State. So, Clayton, why don't you tell me first, how's Tennessee going to win this game? Like, if Tennessee's going to win, what does that look like?
Well, I think you have to just have a strong overall offensive performance. I think you can kind of lean on Ohio State's offense maybe not being that strong, just given their recent performances. But you need Nico to be firing on all cylinders. You need Dylan Sampson to be able to run the ball productively, which you just can't guarantee against this Ohio State team, and really can't guarantee against anyone as it goes for Nico. He's been pretty inconsistent all year. But I think you're going to need a lot on the offensive side. I think Ohio State will hopefully learn from their past mistakes in that Michigan game and throw the ball to their weapons a little bit more, because that's something they didn't really do. So it's going to require a lot, because although Ohio State's coming off this loss, I think they'll learn a lot from that, use the mistakes that they made in that Michigan game to give them an advantage here against Tennessee.
Jimmer, let me serve up the question this way. There's certain matchups where I immediately go to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and I want to know which team has the advantage and how it's going to play out. To me, everything you guys tell me about Tennessee is if they end up in 3rd and 6, they're going to lose by 3 touchdowns. Like, they can't hang on 3rd and 6. Is that how you feel? And then reverse it for Ohio State. What happens if Ohio State's in 3rd and 6? What does that look like? Where do they like to throw the ball?
For Tennessee, truthfully, on the road against Ohio State, they're arguably better off just running the ball in 3rd and 6. Like, it's I trust Dylan Sampson to get 6 yards more than I trust Nico to get it. And genuinely, I think that they should just run the ball into the ground this game. Like, that's probably their only way through. They just need Nico to be serviceable. Looking at Ohio State, Will Howard is a veteran, and he throws the ball around a good bit. He'll pepper it into Jeremiah Smith. Emeka Egbuka is still there. But I think they pass. They're a team that will pass. Quinshon Judkins is dangerous out of the backfield, catching the pass sometimes too. They have a lot of different looks they can give you. I would say it's probably not a Jeremiah Smith pass, because he's been primarily their deep threat guy. But I trust them 10 times more on 3rd and 6 than I do Tennessee.
So, Clayton, it's 3rd and 6 for Ohio State at the 40-45. I favor Tennessee's defense. I love the way they play. They don't blitz a tremendous amount. Like, do you think they'll be able to flummox Ohio State, or how do you see it playing out?
I think they'd have to control it through what they bring pressure-wise. I think Ohio State's receivers have the talent to get open on pretty much anyone. It's just the amount of time that you give Will Howard. I don't think he's the strongest runner. I may be wrong on that, but I think they're going to have to bring the pressure if they really want to get some third down stops consistently.
So if Tennessee wins, it's going to be an under. What's the total? It seems like let's pull that up real quick. It's only 46. JMart, you think it goes under either way, or how do you see it playing out?
I think it could sneaky go over. If you check Tennessee's box scores and stuff like that, they'll run the ball 30 times with Dylan Sampson, throw it maybe 20, and still somehow score 45 points themselves. And that's how they like to run their offense. They like to tire out the other defense a lot, and they move quick, which will be a big factor. And Ohio State has the ability to do it as well. I still think Emeka Egbuka is a really solid deep option too, even though he sits in the slot primarily. And obviously Jeremiah Smith's a game breaker on his own. I think this game should probably go over.
Is there a coaching advantage one way or the other, Clayton?
It's hard to tell. I mean, Ohio State fans are really mad at Ryan Day right now, which I think I think that's going to play a really interesting part, kind of going off topic here. But I think if Ohio State starts out slow, I think there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans in the building, and I don't think their home field is necessarily going to take that big of a role. But going back to the question, I like Ryan Day more than Josh Heupel. But, given what's going on recently, I probably have a bit of a different take than Ohio State fans might. But I do like Day over Heupel in a big-time game like this.
You're smiling, JMart. You're a big Heupel fan, aren't you?
I can't stand him, but, there's a reason I can't stand him. I think, he's like a quarterback in college and stuff like that. He's got big balls on him. He doesn't really care what people think. This is a perfect spot for him to go in on the road. Ryan Day looks every day more and more insecure about his job. I think that it's kind of a nightmare spot for him and a dream spot for Heupel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what Ohio State could do to make them – nothing's going to make anybody happy in Ohio State unless they win the following week. And I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off. It was probably the game of the year, at least between really good teams, Ohio State and Oregon. So Oregon's sitting there. We've touched on this. I don't need to pound it into the ground here. But being the best team in college football, and now you get not arguably, you get the hardest path. It's not up for debate. You're going to get the winner of this game is – that's the toughest matchup. I'll refuse to entertain any other scenario. So they're going to have to face Ohio State for the second time or a Tennessee team that's going to really be flying high, winning at Ohio State. Who does Oregon want to play, JMart?
I think I'd rather play Tennessee, truthfully. I think I don't like a return game against Ohio State, especially if they're able to get out at home and beat Tennessee. It will get some momentum back into a team that desperately needs it. And then again, they have the game film from the last time they played. You typically don't trust a team to beat a team twice in a season, especially when they're this close in talent. I'd rather play Tennessee. I think they could do a great job trying to force Nico to throw the ball more. And I think they could really just neutralize him. Dan Lanning's a dog on defense. And I think they run such a solid offense, a well-rounded offense, that I think Oregon would stomp Tennessee.
You agree with that, Clayton?
Yeah, I think if you definitely don't want to play a team twice in a year. And given the talent level of Ohio State, I think a lot of people agree that they were the most talented team in college football coming into the season. That's definitely not someone you want to see again, especially on a neutral site, given how close that first game was at home for Oregon.
All right, time to put y'all on the spot. Before we all start, JMart, how you see it playing out? Who's going to win it all, and who are they going to beat? And where can I put some money down and try to make some money here on these college football bowl games?
I think Georgia's getting good value right now. I think a lot of people don't trust the quarterback there. And I think truly, if you're looking value-wise, I don't think there's better value than the Dogs. I think they run a great offense. I think they're going to be running a lot, and I think it's going to work really well. And, yeah, I love them for it.
So bet Georgia, then they get to the national championship. That's what I need. I need to know who's going to be in the national championship game so I can then hedge my bet if possible. So you got Georgia facing Oregon. Do you have Oregon coming out on the other side?
No, I think Georgia-Oregon has a similar dynamic to how the Bama-Georgia games have gone for a while. Oregon's got the former long-time DC at Georgia and Dan Lanning that Kirby kind of mentored for a while. And if you go back 2 years, you see how Georgia handled that Oregon team. I do think it's talent's different this time around, but I do think there is kind of that big brother, little brother thing going on here.
But that's the matchup you see, Georgia beating Oregon in the championship.
But yes, and I'm 10 times more confident about Oregon getting there than I am about Georgia getting there.
Got it. So if you weren't going to bet Oregon or Georgia to win the championship, take a little bit of a long shot? What would be the third team where you're like, man, I like the odds. I could see it happening.
I think, and I hate saying this because I don't like shouting out Notre Dame, but I do think Notre Dame as a team, as far as structure goes, they're a team that can win one-on-one games better than basically anyone else there. They're so steady on offense. They're so steady on defense. If they are able to beat Georgia, I really have a hard time seeing them stopping the roll if it's not going to be Georgia or Oregon.
All right, cool. Clayton, what about you, man? First, who you think's winning it all, and then give me a dark horse.
Yeah, very similar to Jack, actually. I think Georgia is going to win it all. I think they have the easiest path to get there. Being in that part of the bracket just makes it so much easier for them. And then, like he was saying, I mean, a lot of people aren't confident in the quarterback play there, but I don't think it takes much more than a system quarterback with that talented of a roster, what they've got going on over there. So I trust in Gunnar Stockton to get him there. Kind of same vibes with the Oregon game. I think they'll match up with Oregon in the championship. I think Kirby Smart just has the advantage on Dan Lanning there. As for a dark horse team, I'd probably say the winner of the Tennessee-Ohio State game. Right now, it's really hard for me to say who's even going to win that one. But I think the winner of that game has a strong chance at beating Oregon. I think if you can beat Oregon, you can hang with anyone. So
there you have it, and I am pulling for Boise State. I really hope Boise State gets there. Should be fun. So just a quick recap. Make sure you got you guys on the record. I know Clayton, you think Notre Dame covers the 7.5 fairly easily. JMart, you're leaning more towards Indiana covering that spread.
Yeah.
Both of you guys have Penn State covering the 8.5 points and it not being very competitive. Both of you guys have Clemson staying within 12. Is that correct?
Yeah.
correct.
And then the 7 points. I didn't get you on the record, Clay. You sound like you think it's going to be super close. You would take the 7 points with Tennessee?
It's hard to say, but yeah, I think that's a bit of a big spread there. I think a lot of that has to do with the environment. So I'm going to take Tennessee to cover that.
You take the 7. And JMart, you think Tennessee getting 7 is the right move, or you think Ohio State's going to stomp them?
I've been back and forth all week on this. I'll probably have changed my opinion by Friday, truthfully, but I know I'm betting on it. And as of right now, I'm leaning Tennessee covering the 7. But again, it could change in a heartbeat. It's a really, really good line, and it's a really, really close matchup.
Sweet. Well, appreciate you guys. We're going to put this out. Yeah, I'm going to put this out on Wednesday, and then you guys will have bets Friday. I mean, we have all these bowl games. So as soon as you guys like anything for any of the bowl games, any props, fire away, please. And then we'll have bets out Friday night for the Indiana Notre Dame game and Saturday for the other 3 games. So, all right, appreciate you guys. And then we'll get together next week, and we'll be down to 8 teams, and we'll do the same thing. So anything I left out, or are we pretty good?
I think it's good.
I think we're all good.
All right. Well, good. Have a great will I see you guys? I don't know if I will. Well, have a Merry Christmas. I'm sure I'll talk to you guys at some point. Hope everybody has a great day. Tomorrow, what's that Thursday night game off the Broncos Chargers. Should be a good game. I'll do a whole pod on that tomorrow. Hawks and Orioles in a positive way, I promise, or I won't talk about it at all. And then that'll be that. So, all right. Hope everybody has a good day. And yeah, let's try and make some money this week. See you guys.
See ya.